My name is Karl Reuter and I'm 66 years old. I received my PhD in 1985 from the Justus Liebig University in Gießen, where I was member of Professor Günther Meyer's working group in the Institute of Organic Chemistry. I subsequently worked for a large chemical company for 8 years, and for the last 26 years I have managed my own separation technology company. I am the initiator and sponsor of the book project Lives in Chemistry, which is being presented today, and Professor Carsten Reinhardt, chairman of the German Chemical Society's History of Chemistry division and chairman of the advisory board of the book project, has asked me to talk about the origin of this initiative in a short video. How did the book project Lives in Chemistry come about? My first answer is very simple. It is just the result of a series of coincidences. But after all, what are coincidences? When my mother-in-law was still alive, my wife, children, and I always attended a family gathering in the Sauerland in the week after Easter. And on the way back home, we would visit the Meyer family in Marburg for a Saturday afternoon coffee. And so it was in 2015, when visiting Professor Meyer, that he told me he was about to write an account of his chemistry for his children. I was immediately taken by this idea and strongly urged him to do this, not only for his children, but also for all of his PhD students. Now, why would I strongly urge him to do so? On December 1st, 1997, Professor Meyer held a German Chemical Society lecture on his chemistry in the chemistry department of Freiburg University. He had told me about this in advance, and so I was in the audience. He began to write with just a piece of chalk at the top left-hand corner of the first blackboard, and after 60 minutes he finished at the bottom right-hand corner of the fourth and last blackboard. The chemistry that he presented to the auditorium during this hour was breathtaking, almost unbelievable. The synthesis of a prohibited or impossible molecule is always a sensation. He showed us nothing but such molecules. The whole range of anti-aromatic cyclobutadienes, and with it the electronically related trimethylene methane and cyclopropionylidene. The unbelievable list of stable tetrahedranes. Heteroaromatic compounds such as silabenzene and borabenzene. Compounds with silicon double bonds such as silaethane and disilaethane. Compounds with silicon triple bonds such as disilaethene and hydrogen silacyanide. Carbenes such as methylene, cyclopentadienylidene, and imidazolididenes. Silylanes such as methoxymethylsilylane, silacyclopropionylidene, and siladiazocyclopropionylidene, and carbon suboxides and carbon subsulfides with up to 5 carbon atoms. At the end of the lecture, it was clear that this man, by simply following his curiosity and interesting traces in his scientific everyday life, had in retrospective and as an end result resolutely and systematically linked carbon atoms with carbon atoms or with heteroatoms in all possible, impossible, or prohibited ways. He had generated these highly reactive species in a frozen state and characterized them, and thus, molecule by molecule, he had explored the high valleys and summit hollows in the potential energy surfaces of elementary binding systems. He had thereby laid the experimental foundations for the transition of organic chemistry into the new digital era, that is, for the theoretical calculation of transition states and ultimately reactions. As a pioneer with an immense wealth of ideas and enormous technical skill, he had developed the chemistry for the appropriate precursors, suitable pyrolytic and photochemical procedures, the technique of matrix isolation, and the spectroscopic analysis of the molecules. And in close cooperation with theoreticians, he had compared his experimental data with theoretical calculation models. With that, he made a decisive contribution to the elucidation of fundamental bonding structures. And he also discovered surprising structures and unexpected phenomena, such as the excitation of embedded molecules by a xenon halogen exciplex, the isomerization between dihalogenomethane and isodihalogenomethane, silacyclopropene, may be the most strained molecule in organic chemistry, the phenomenon of quasi-linearity by the example of propargylene, and fundamentally new tunnel phenomena by the example of the transition of the two rotamers of oxalic acid monoamide, 449B to 449A. With that, he wrote an important piece of scientific history. I was very impressed. Up until this lecture, I knew only about 20% of his chemistry. My guess was that the same was so for the majority of my colleagues in the working group. And his chemistry was worth knowing about. Professor Meyer, in fact, actually did sit down and started to write. And at the celebration of my company's 20th anniversary, at a venue overlooking the rooftops of Freiburg, he handed me the first chapter of his scientific memoirs as a present. I then urged him to complete the manuscript and told him that I was willing to act as a publisher for the first edition. The Meyer book was printed in time for Professor Meyer's 85th birthday, and it was received enthusiastically by over 100 of his PhD students who were present on that occasion. That was supposed to be the end of the story, but I was not satisfied. Professor Meyer describes vividly and authentically how research is done, how he did it, how the ideas were developed, and how one thing led to another. I thought that this certainly must be interesting and enlightening for all those currently doing research, and that the Meyer book should be available in every chemistry department library in Germany. However, that was not so simple to achieve. But what was it all really about? What would actually make sense? Wouldn't it be wonderful to let a number of eminent and really successful research scientists tell the story of their scientific life's work? And in contrast to progress reports or review articles, to let them explain how their thoughts and ideas had developed in context. What were the fundamental underlying questions? What were the goals? What was planned? What happened by chance? What were the strategies and recipes for success, or the virtues of that particular scientist? And I'm certain that there are many different ones, some of them cultural and country-specific. What worked, what didn't? How did working relationships function with co-workers and students, as well as with colleagues in one's own institute, as well as worldwide? How did they deal with failures? What were the external constraints, e.g. budgets for co-workers, equipment, etc.? Was there goodwill and support from the public, from the media, from politicians? Which obstacles had to be overcome, and how did he or she deal with them? Nota bene, there are many clever people, but only few of them have really pioneered new territory and left a rich scientific legacy. Perhaps the individual stories of the most successful chemists of the last generation could be assembled like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle to provide an overview that is not only instructive and enlightening, but also an inspiration and incentive for many, for research scientists, PhD students, postdocs, and professors, but also for politics, the media, and society. Innovations, new and really good ideas, are the most important raw material for our country and indeed for the whole world. Anyone who believes that the world has already been invented is making a big mistake. We are just at the beginning. In fact, such a project could be relevant for us all, and hardly any other branch of science is so well suited as chemistry to be, so to speak, an experimental laboratory for the creative process. Because, first, research in chemistry has a long tradition, particularly in Germany, but also worldwide. And a very successful research culture has emerged. The very high proportion of chemists with doctorates in comparison to other natural sciences illustrates this. Second, in particular, as a result of modern, sophisticated and rapid methods of analysis, GC, HPLC, NMR, MS, etc., and the excellent resources for literature searches, it takes only a few days or weeks to verify or implement an idea for a new substance with special properties, a new route of synthesis, etc. And the experimental outcome is usually very quickly conclusive and clear. We are not kept in the dark for long. That is to say, one can make important discoveries in a very short period of time. Let me add here the following 3 comments. First, in my view, those research scientists worldwide who can look back on their acquisition of knowledge, their inventions and innovations in a wide-ranging important field, not for military superiority, but in the service of humanity and our planet, and who have shaped the next generation of scientists. Those men and women are the true pioneers, the true heroes of our world in our time. This means, of course, that the book project from the very start also would have to be international, since its focus is on important contributions to science, humanity, and our planet. Second, handing down the acquired wealth of knowledge and experience to the next generation is a beneficent cultural necessity. I would like to pay special thanks to all those authors who took on the task of doing this at the end of their scientific careers. And third, a book like this should, of course, also be a visible acknowledgement of lifelong eminent scientific achievement. Thus, I approached Professor Meyer yet again and suggested that we should start such a book project. His response was immediate. This proposal should be implemented without further delay. Very soon we found the right top people for this project. Dr. Peter Görlitz, executive editor of Angewandte Chemie from 1982 until 2017. Professor Henning Hopf, until 2006, Managing Director of the Institute of Organic Chemistry at TU Braunschweig, co-editor of Chemische Berichte and Liebigs Annalen, and literature expert for the Board of Directors of the German Chemical Society. And, of course, Professor Carsten Reinhardt from the University of Bielefeld and chairman of the German Chemical Society's History of Chemistry division. We were welcomed with open arms. Professor Reinhardt had already found the right publishing company, and Dr. Gölitz's wife, Dr. Eva Wille, had more than 30 years' experience in scientific publishing and was a brilliant addition to our team. And voila, 18 months later, we are now able to present the first 3 autobiographies. I'm extremely grateful for the dedicated work of this group. In conclusion, let me return to my comment at the start of this talk. But after all, what are coincidences? In 1995, I took the rather daring decision to give up a safe position in the chemical industry and to start my own company based on 2 new ideas for chemical separation. It was the era of the new economy, and companies gave themselves corporate objectives and a motto. I had only an idea in my head and not yet a business, but the motto for RCA, my company, had already been created. Pioneering the genius in man. The motto was first of all meant to be an expectation of myself, but also of my employees as well as my customers and partners. This motto appeared on RCA's very first letterhead, which I soon removed, however, because it sounded very arrogant and potentially disparaging of others, and because such a motto first has to be earned, though one can't ever actually earn it. With all that in mind, I still find it appropriate to put this motto in front of the book project today. Pioneering the genius in man. For me, that is the essence of this project. May the book series be a contribution to it. From the bottom of my heart, I am very grateful to all those who have made this project possible, and to all those who, by contributing their commitment and their abilities, will make it successful and valuable. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, I wish this project all the success in the world.